Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining and thanks for giving us the opportunity to introduce you to Hydrogen Europe. Before I start, I would like to let the new Commissioner for Climate speak. It's Franz Timmermans, so it's the powerful personality and character of the future Commission. He will be Vice President, and this is what he has to say. No. About hydrogen.
Okay. Maybe if I do this?
No.
Tell me you just had to click on it.
Doesn't work. Well, that's him. I come back to him in the very end with what he said, but he says it quite interestingly. But no problem, we have it in the presentation. Now, Hydrogen Europe, you can see here, it's a logo that has a lot of blue and green. The reason for this is there is green hydrogen, there is blue hydrogen, and we are covering both. So we want to see the balance. We regard blue hydrogen, I come back to it, as a transition to only green one day, but a very important transition in order to scale up. This is the membership of Hydrogen Europe. It has grown considerably over the last 4 years. If you want to see how we are scaled up, there are a lot of energy companies, there are industrial companies, of course, transport companies, and still a lot of research associations, and on top, national associations. We need the national associations because a lot of legislation that happens now on integrating hydrogen into the energy system, and we have Noah van Hulst, the special envoy of the Netherlands here. This legislation will be implemented in the member states, so we need the national associations to work with us. We have been, so to say, founded as a result of a tripartite cooperation between the European Commission, the research world, and the industry world. I'm not talking about the FCGU, that's Carlos, who works for the FCGU, but I wanted to show you that that was the origin of the association being built. A joint undertaking, so a commitment over 7 years of the European Commission to help through innovative projects to scale up the sector. Why is hydrogen so important at the moment? Why is everybody talking about hydrogen? And why is it regarded as a technology for climate action? Well, let me first talk about the key targets that we now have enshrined in law already until 2030. So for the moment, the European Union and the member states need to cut their greenhouse gas emissions in comparison to 1990 down to 40%. They need to have and to prove 32% share of renewable energy and 32.5% of improvement in energy efficiency. That's already quite ambitious. And then what happened? We had a new commission and a new commission president and a candidate, and during her speech in front of the European Parliament, in order to become elected, she became even more ambitious. She said, I want Europe to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And then she said, we must go further. We must strive for more. A two-step approach is needed to reduce CO2 emissions by 2030 by 50, if not 55%. That's super ambitious. That's not just 40, that's 50 to 55. And she proposes 2 steps for that. One step is the Green Deal. We'll come back to it. And the other one is the first ever European climate law that enshrines, so to say, all these initiatives and makes it one act. Now, what's the problem? The problem is that nowadays we are at a quite bad position. These are the figures for Germany, and you see that the renewable shares in the power sector are not bad. It's already a quarter, it's not bad. But if you see how we translate this into the heat sector, you already understand that's not brilliant, and especially in the transport sector, it's really horrible. I mean, we did not achieve very much of translation of these renewables into the transport sector. Why is it so? Because we are not able to build up the power grid. This is, again, the example of the country that is, so to say, in the middle of Germany. That's a publication that was published by Der Spiegel in June this year. And basically it said Germany decided 10 years ago to build new power grids. They planned 7,700. They realized only 950 in 10 years. And just in the year 2017, 30 kilometers. Last year was more. 30. This is not how you can integrate more renewables, because the power sector is the crucial one. So you are in a bottleneck. You need to overcome the bottleneck. And this is why everybody talks about hydrogen, because of this technology here. That is called the power-to-gas technology. So basically what you do is you take the electricity, you transform it into a gaseous carrier, and the gaseous carrier is called hydrogen. And this hydrogen is a gas, so you can use it directly, purely as hydrogen, and put it into a gas pipeline, into a hydrogen pipeline, or you can blend it and then use the existing pipeline system. You blend it with, in the best case, atmospherical, circular CO2, and you can produce a lot of interesting fuels or interesting gases over there. But basically you don't lose, you don't curtail the electric energy. You can use it, and you can use the existing infrastructure. Just to give one number, last year we had a curtailment in 2 countries only. Carlos's country, so Spain, and the country I know best, Germany. Both countries had curtailment of 3 billion of euro. So they produce the energy, they cannot put it into the power grid, and they let the consumer pay for that inefficiency. Super inefficient. That is why this technology can help out. Why can it help out? Because hydrogen is a multi-talent. It can enable the system to have large-scale renewables integration, because the gas grid is much bigger than the power grid. And it can help to distribute this energy across the sectors. You can transport the energy, the renewable energy, via the gas grid 10 to 20 times cheaper than with the power grid. A molecule is cheaper to be transported than an electron. And also, if you have these problems of congestion in the power grid, you can buffer with this technology and create a system resilience. You make the system more efficient. This is how you integrate more renewables. And then you can decarbonize with the existing hydrogen. You can decarbonize transportation, industrial energy use, the building heat and power, and also, and that's very, very sexy, you can decarbonize industries, like steel industry. This week, the first pilot was started by ThyssenKrupp. I think it's Europe's biggest steel company. So they replace coal in the production of steel by, you have iron ore, you need to heat it up, you do it with coal, and you need to reduce the oxygen. You do it with carbon monoxide, CO, and you get the O out, you have CO2. Bad. You can do it with H2. If you do it with H2, heat it up and reduce, you have H2O, it's water. So you can produce with hydrogen in the steel branch, in the chemical industry, in the petrochemical industry, a lot of products without getting back to fossil energy. And that's great. And this is why, that's my title here, hydrogen is best placed to do sector coupling and sector integration. What you do here in this crowded chart, you see the blue field, which is, so to say, the power grid, and you see the orange field, which is the gas grid. What you need to do is the integration of both, the connection of both. That's called sector coupling. And that allows you then to translate renewable or decarbonized energy, because you also can decarbonize methane, so natural gas. You take out the CO2, you have hydrogen. And if you store this, you don't emit it, then it's decarbonized. And you can use it in transport, in heat, in electricity, repowering, and also in industrial use. And this is sectoral integration. You integrate, so to say, the renewable or decarbonized energy into the end use. Sector coupling and sector integration are big issues when it comes to the main targets of the European Union to be achieved, because you cannot do it with the power grid alone. So don't get us wrong, we are not against the power grid, we help them to enlarge their possibilities. Here's just an example. That's an example from Germany. It's called Get H2. It's some power producers and transmission system operators working together from the electricity and the gas side. And what you see here is the idea of a backbone in Germany. So they would love to have dedicated hydrogen pipelines to use the product that they produce in power to gas or power to hydrogen, to use it all over the country. And that's the gas grid of Europe. It's huge, it's existing, it's developed, and at certain places it's very dense. You see in northwestern Europe, especially in the Netherlands, it's extremely dense and it's existing. And the Netherlands is the first country to start to dedicate pipelines, it's L-gas pipelines, to hydrogen. So the first 22 kilometers are already done. And I'm curious to listen to Noé, because he is the special envoy of his government. He's the first special envoy on hydrogen in the world. So it's a very committed government. And here you see the result. If you have this power to be transported via pylons, via the power grid, you see here 8 power pylons carrying 3 gigawatt each. This is why people don't want this. They are against it because they can see it, they can possibly hear it, they don't like it. And that's why the Germans have the issue. At the left-hand side, you see the same energy being transported via a gas pipeline with 1.20 meters, and you see nothing. Yeah, you see a little yellow thing there. That's it. And there you see the difference. So it works. Are we only talking about green hydrogen? I said already no. This is a study here that comes from PGE. It's quite ambitious because they say in 2050 we will have a lot of electrolysis, SMR and CCS, so that's the carbon capture sequestration technology, and even more so from pyrolysis. I'm not sure whether this is clear and whether this is to become reality. Pyrolysis is splitting natural gas into hydrogen and carbon black, so solid carbon, that you then can use in different applications like carbon fiber and other applications, or you just bury the carbon black and you have clean hydrogen, so to say, non-emitting hydrogen. But that's just a study. They exist, these studies. Now, let's get back to how to scale it up, because you might say, okay, where are the projects? The projects exist on a lower scale because the FCHU helped very much to bring some projects into reality. We will later on talk more about the so-called IPCEI, that's the important project of common European interest. And that day here, 9th of October, showed the huge interest of Europeans in a tool to scale up, to industrial scale, this technology. We were really overwhelmed in that conference. And the title of that conference, organized by the European Commission, by the industry part of the Commission, was Hydrogen for Climate Action, exactly because of this. What we plan, I cannot talk a lot about it, but what we plan is to define the demand we have in the steel companies, in the refineries. They need clean hydrogen. And we then plan how we produce this and how we transport it. And we possibly connect the existing motorway, so the 10T corridors, with the pipelines to have this connection, to transport hydrogen via the pipelines, but to be connected with a motorway, to use this motorway for clean and non-emitting transport, because we are about to build the first trucks running on hydrogen in these years, and there are major decisions to come up. Now let's get back to the Green Deal, to this commissioner on climate action, Frans Timmermans. It's a good sign that he's Dutch, because he understands possibly better than others, because his government, his country is transforming into a hydrogen economy. So if you go to the city of Groningen, you will feel like in a hydrogen country. I mean, because they step out of gas. Now, the Green Deal, and he is responsible for that, and he is to propose within 100 days, the first 100 days of his office, and that's in March, a Green Deal that is not just energy. The Green Deal will be a lot farming, so how to make farming and agriculture more thinking in cycles and circular economy. But it's also about sustainable transport, as you see, and clean, reliable and affordable energy. So it's getting out of the silo and trying to interact between different sectors. And there you need carriers. Electricity is one important carrier, but I already talked about the limitations. And you need another, a second carrier that also helps you to decarbonize chemistry or the material flow of industry, and that's hydrogen. Hydrogen and nitrogen, I'm not going into it, but hydrogen is one of the most important enablers of this Green Deal, and that's why we regard hydrogen not as the heart, but as the ventricle of the Green Deal. And that's why we are quite happy. Then in his initial speech, when he was in the parliament running for commissioner, that's what you see in the video, he said, hydrogen could be a huge opportunity for our economy. It is not that difficult to use gas infrastructure to import green hydrogen using gas infrastructure. What he means is North Africa, but also Ukraine. You don't know, Ukraine has a lot of wind and solar capacities. But definitely we as Europeans need to import. And I'm happy that we have a presentation here by the IEA showing the global, the international dimension of hydrogen. It's not only hydrogen that is produced in Europe, decentralized hydrogen or decentrally produced hydrogen. It's also bulk hydrogen that flows into Europe via pipelines or via vessels, via ships in liquid form, in form of ammonia or in form of methanol. And the last thing, and then I stop, he said we need to protect our industries and help them free themselves from fossil fuels, for example, when hydrogen is used in the manufacturing of steel. So you see, we are at the brink of a real disruption of our industries and also of the utilities, because the utilities in the end will, on a local level, have to implement this, to put this into practice. And that is why we are already asked by a lot of utilities, what's your roadmap? What's your outlook? And we say, okay, we will be a little bit stronger on this utility exhibition already next year. We saw the big interest and we will definitely come up with clear figures. IEA yesterday did their outlook. There are some clear figures. And I'm happy to tell you that hydrogen, it's an unprecedented moment. We know it, but we are ready. We are ready. The technologies are mature. I came here with my hydrogen car. Of course, I will fuel it here in Paris. I will go back to Brussels. And I have no difficulties at all. It's a technology that works. I would wish that some Europeans would be faster in implementing it, because I'm driving a Korean car, proudly, but it's a Korean car, and I would wish that our industries would be faster, but there are signs that this will happen, and I have to thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the discussion with you. Thank you.